So hello and welcome to our session, Conversation Circles and Computer Labs, Flexible Learning for Students on Waiting Lists, sponsored by Wisconsin Literacy. Wisconsin Literacy is a nonprofit statewide coalition of 81 literacy agencies. We strengthen literacy statewide through expert trainings, personalized consultations, health literacy, workforce connections, and advocacy. I am pleased to introduce our presenters, Harleen Kocher and Lillian McFarlane. Lillian is Neighborhood House of Milwaukee's manager of the International Learning Program. She is a dedicated, detail-oriented, and results-driven operations manager with over 10 years of experience in optimizing grant processes, ensuring compliance, and leading successful grant initiatives. She has her BS in Economics and International Business from Marquette and her MBA in Marketing from UW-Milwaukee. She's an international she is a proud mother of two wonderful daughters. And Harleen Kocher is a literacy warrior and fitness nerd with a successful career as an entrepreneur that enabled her to live in 7 different countries. She has committed herself to enhancing cross-cultural connections. Her background as a yoga teacher and trauma-informed coach brings a unique blend of compassion and understanding to her endeavors. And she channels these experiences into her role as the literacy program coordinator at the Nevins Library in Methuen, Massachusetts, where she strives to inspire others through the power of literacy. So we are very excited today to hear them both share their experiences. So we'll start today's session. Harleen will talk about conversation circles, and then Lillian McFarlane will talk about the computer labs, and then we will have time at the end for questions. But if you have questions that come up throughout the session, please type them in the chat, and Robin is watching the chat for us, and she will let them know when a question comes in. So let's start with conversation circles. Harleen.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. And this is awesome to be here today. So we call conversation groups a form of cultural exchange. And as you know, I go along, I will explain why that is an important, although it may not sound, that big of a distinction, but it's important for our purposes. Next slide, Anna. So these are some numbers. We are based out of the Nevins Library in Methuen. We've been in continuous operation for 18 months. Again, this is something different, at least in Massachusetts, where mostly a conversation group will run for about 3 to 4 months, following kind of like the semester system. And then they'll take a break and then they'll come back. But we have not taken any breaks, and we have been, operating continuously for 18 months. We typically have 15 to 20 students attend every session. And each session also includes 8 to 10 volunteers. The students are typically high beginners to advanced, and the length of session is 1.5 to 2 hours. The advertised is about 1.5 hours, but we usually go to about 2 hours. And we've just added a second conversation group on Wednesday evenings. The original one was Friday mornings to accommodate people, who have a regular day job. And we started a couple of weeks ago, and we're already seeing numbers as high as 20 without really any publicity. Next slide, Anna. So this is, if you're just getting started, if you have no sort of experience in a conversation group, this is just an idea of the basics. The space, libraries, we also have churches interested in hosting a conversation group. At the moment, I host a conversation group at the Mormon Church also, so that's actually the third one. And then community centers, again, we've got a Hispanic community center that hosts a conversation group from time to time. And the health and human services organizations have also indicated an interest in hosting conversation groups. The leaders typically are staff and volunteers. The staff part, I personally feel, is very important because only volunteers can get a little fragmented. Sometimes volunteers will either lose interest or have other priorities come up. But having a staff member helm the program ensures continuity. The training that we provide to our volunteers is a basic orientation. We also do, an interview where we sort of have a conversation, and sometimes, not a lot of times, but sometimes I've actually had to say no to a few volunteers when I felt that they weren't a very good fit for the kind of culture that we foster in these groups. We also have a lot of our tutors from our tutoring program volunteer in these groups. The student recruitment is from the waiting lists. So typically a student waits for a tutor for something from 2.5 to 3 years in our program. And these days, it's awesome that we are able to tell a student, hey, while you're waiting, we've got this other option. Maybe you'd like to try it out. So that is something that we have been offering with great success to the students who are on the waiting list. Recruitment is also from the Adult Learning Center. At least in Massachusetts, every city has an adult learning center that offers ESOL programming. So a lot of those students also join our conversation groups. Anna? This is what I call a scheme for organization. These are just alternate ways of looking at the conversation group or the conversation circle. So thinking about facilitating versus teaching. Facilitating, I like to say, is where the leader tries to infuse their personality as less as possible, like minimally. It's more about the participants, it's more about how they interact, what they are thinking, and the focus is on sharing, but sharing by the participants. Then the cultural exchange aspect is also very important. Cultural exchange in the sense of we discuss, I attended this session yesterday, which was on cultural humility. It was an amazing session. Well, one thing that came up was that why do we hesitate to ask questions about culture? And immediately I was like, but we don't. We, in fact, encourage questions on culture. And I'll talk about how we managed to bring about, that kind of an environment. But we focus a lot on culture and different cultures, and typically things like, oh, so how is it done where you're from, or how is it done in with your background, etc. So that really takes it on a slightly different sort of path than teaching the language. So we do language learning activities, but at this point, that is not the focus. Then we encourage our students to showcase any talents that they have. So we have, students writing poems, singing songs. Typically, they'll share it in their language, and I'll help them, or a volunteer will help them translate. Next slide, Anna. This is just, I just thought if you don't have experience ever doing a conversation group, this just gives you the idea of what kind of activities we can do in each session. So alternating between language learning and conversation, coaching students to prepare the informational write-ups or poems or any other creative things that they'd like to present. We celebrate holidays and birthdays. So we just did the Chinese New Year. We do Ramadan. We, of course, do Christmas. So we celebrate all of these. We discuss what it means to us. And especially, I'm an immigrant myself. So what does Christmas mean to me after so many years in the United States is something that sees a lot of participation from both students and volunteers. Anna, next slide. This is a typical session. The session begins with the leader, in this case me, introducing the topic. Now, because we are trying to accommodate students of varying abilities, we pair them one-on-one with a volunteer for the first sometimes 15, sometimes 25 minutes, where they will prepare the topic with the volunteer. What this ensures is that we, at least here in Massachusetts, most of the conversation groups will say that this is only suitable for intermediate to advanced learners. Now, accommodating the waiting list means that we cannot have those distinctions. So even a high beginner or somebody who's, let's say, not a medium, intermediate beginner student, once they get help one-on-one with a volunteer, they find themselves easy. It becomes easy for them to participate in the group activities. So the first 15 to 25 minutes, we will have this one-on-one with the volunteers for those students who need it. And then we gather together, and then the students will present on whatever it is that they're prepared with the volunteers. Usually, in the wrap-up, we also have a homework assignment. Now, this is another thing that helps us accommodate those students who feel, well, a conversation group is too casual for me. I am very serious about my language learning, and I will only work with a tutor. But when we hand out homework and they know that, this is an option for them, that they will then come back next week and work with a volunteer one-on-one on that homework before they present it to the group. Or sometimes, it facilitates a kind of connection between the volunteer and the student where outside the traditional tutoring paradigm, they agree to meet during the week at the library to work on the homework. So all of those relationships have been facilitated just by the act of giving out homework. Anna, next one, please. I have mentioned volunteers in all of the slides that I have presented so far. And I just wanted to sort of talk about volunteer engagement. I think the key difference in why we have been very successful with a large cohort of students, why we have been able to continue for 18 months without a break, uh, is the fact that we have attracted a lot of dedicated volunteers. So one conversation group usually would have a leader and maybe 1 to 2 volunteers. We have 8 to 10 volunteers working with us in every session. And the key to that has been that they are attracted by the discussions about other cultures, discussions about other countries. We have volunteers who are visiting those countries after they have met with the students and getting an idea of where to go and what to do, etc. It has just also become one of those things. A lot of the retirees who are looking to make new connections are coming for these sessions. And really, this has been a huge sort of game changer for how the conversation groups, at least that I have seen in Massachusetts, used to happen, where the cultural exchange aspect wasn't emphasized as much. So it wasn't engaging enough for the volunteers to consider this a long-term commitment. So right now, the volunteers that we have with us have almost been there for more than a year. And we keep adding new ones almost every other week. It's getting to a point where, and I'll talk about this in challenges, that we're running out of space to accommodate such a large group. Anna, next slide. The second thing, apart from the volunteer engagement, is the trauma-informed aspect of it. My personal experience, my personal background, having lived in multiple countries, has been such that I came to this work rather organically. It is not something that I ever set out to understand. It just came to me sort of, I would say, rather easily. But I try to infuse this particular idea of being trauma informed in not just the volunteers, but also other students, to understand that not all of us are here by choice. A lot of us are, yes, I am one of them, but a lot of other people are not. And really understanding the the emotions, the dynamics that go with displacement and exile. And I know we're not, overtly a mental health focused group, etc. But really, and again, it's interesting why this became such an integral part of what I do with the conversation group, is because when I started leading this group, I was a volunteer myself. And we would have a lot of students who would drop out of the tutoring program, but they would be doing really well in the conversation group. And at the time, the person who had my job asked me, "Why do you think that is?" And I had no answer for her. Like, why? Why do they drop out of the tutoring program and continue to work with me? And over time, I understood why. It was because of the fact that they felt seen, they felt understood in this group. This group did not shy away from the fact that, yes, it's a difficult thing, it's a difficult time. And we did not indulge in the usual, oh, your life is going to be better just because you have moved here kind of platitudes, which unfortunately are just I don't think anybody intends it like that. It just stems from not having an understanding of, like I said, displacement and exile. So this again has become one of those cornerstones that I feel are crucial to establishing any kind of group activity with people who are from specifically, countries like Afghanistan, Haiti, Sudan. We have a lot of members who come from these countries. Anna, challenges. Yes. So what I like to call the excitement of uncertainty. We are a public library. Often, the first recourse, somebody moves to town or into the area, they're looking for English help and they come to the public library. So, and we have, again, this is a personal quirk of mine, that I do not, uh, create a registration system or have a cohort that is restricted, etc. I don't do that. So how many people are going to show up? I have no idea. Sometimes it can be 10, sometimes, actually last weekend it was 35. and I just did not know what to do with that number. So that's one of the challenges that I'm facing at this time. Embracing diversity sounds really awesome, except when it comes to language proficiency, and you're saying, "Oh, you're welcome, no matter what," and then having to cater to that, especially with volunteers, they don't want to work with somebody who's a complete beginner. They want to work with the intermediate or the advanced. So finding something that can help the absolute beginner students, that's a major challenge. Keeping the learning fresh. Again, this is something I have seen with other conversation groups where they sort of tend to fizzle out because the learning becomes totally predictable and boring, and students feel that they're not really learning because of that. I talked about the numbers and how they're really expanding. We used to be in what was called the fireplace room, which was one of the public areas, and we could easily accommodate about 15 to 20 people. Now our numbers are closer to 30, including the volunteers. So we've been given a great, one of the most prized rooms in the library. And it looks like we're going to outgrow that by, in a few months. So that's really a big challenge at the moment. The other thing is the continuous need for strong leaders. So the conversation group depends on the volunteers, but the leaders are really what, sort of makes or breaks the conversation group. So if the Friday morning one is really, really dependent on me. If I'm on vacation, in fact, I haven't been on a vacation since I started doing this. So I haven't missed a single Friday. Actually, I did one, I was sick, but that's about it. And it's just, uh, it's one of those things I feel like if I took any time off, it would be a disaster. So that's something to consider. The second one, I have trained to leaders, and I'm hoping that it will not be so dependent on me. But the need for strong leaders who can really sort of uh, you know, really ensure that all the things that we discussed, whether it's the cultural sensitivities, whether it is the trauma-informed aspect of it, all of those things are adhered to as much as possible. So that's a challenge. I think that should be the last one. So this was a question that Anna asked me to address specifically. How do you engage students who are waiting for a tutor? And a lot of students do feel disappointed when we redirect them to the conversation group instead of, assigning them a tutor. However, after a while, like I mentioned earlier, many of our students find the conversation groups to be more appealing than traditional tutoring. It is the blend of, the group activity, the opportunity to socialize, and the homework assignments sort of make them feel comfortable. Okay, we're actually learning because, we're not just talking for 2, 3 minutes per session and that's it. But the homework assignments really reinforce whatever topic we did, and also have room for a lot of opportunity to grow. For example, one of my students from Haiti is right now doing a sort of expose, as it were, on how the rest of the world has treated Haiti. So it's something that he's very, very motivated to present to the group, and he did not have the English skills earlier to do that. So I feel like that has been a great, the homework and the one-on-one attention that some of the students can get. And we do it like this, like if this week you did not work with a volunteer, I will remember it that this week you did not get a chance to work with a volunteer. I will assign you a volunteer next week. So that sort of fills in that gap of tutoring. And some of the students will still opt to work with a tutor, but a large percentage actually choose to work with the conversation group and not get a tutor. Was there a question? I think I saw one question in chat.
Yes, the question is, where do you get the varied topics or homework assignments for various levels?
Yes, so the homework assignments really comes from me getting to know the students and what interests them. For example, in this case, the example that I was giving of the student from Haiti, I, from his sharing in the group, understood that that was something that he really wanted to share in a more detailed manner. The activities for the class, really, there is a wealth of activities if we just Google. There's so many of them. And we do have online resources that I'm sure are common to all of us, like Ellie and Pro Literacy has some of these resources on their website. So the activities are not really hard to get. If you like, Anna, I can give you those links later. Okay.
So
That's
thank
me.
you. Thank you, Harleen. And yeah, if you can send me any links, we can include that in follow-up
Sure.
information we have. And next, we have Lillian McFarlane, who's going to talk about computer learning at the International Learning Program.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. All right,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you, Anna, and a great presentation, Harleen. So just a little bit of information about the Neighborhood House of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. My program, the International Learning Program, is just one of several programs of the Neighborhood House that has existed in Milwaukee for almost 80 years now. We're a community-based organization that provides support services to the community in the neighborhood and then now further out. So the International Learning Program is a program that has existed now for over 40 years, which initially we started off just focused on serving refugees and asylees that were coming in from Southeast Asia. And now we have expanded, and I'll share a little bit of information about the students that we serve and work with. But we just focus on adults who have now legal permanent residency here. We provide English as a second language programming and basic adult education, and also citizenship courses for those who reach 5 years. So many of our students, older students, stay with us beyond the citizenship when they get citizenship and, practice some more English. But we really encourage them to move on and practice their English and work their English into getting certifications and, higher education if possible for those who are at the higher level in their literacy. We have, I'm one of the partially accredited individuals who accredited by the Department of Justice, so we can provide the citizenship courses to those who want to become citizens. Next, Anna, please. So as I mentioned before, ESL and citizenship are the courses that we provide, but we also have a digital literacy that is woven into our classes. The teachers separately take time to encourage computer learning with the students. We also provide wraparound services like casework, job searches, and interpretation, just to help to support organizations that are already provide that heavily, but we get a lot of questions from our students on how to go about getting, food share or getting, a driver's license or things like that. And one new program that we've added to our activities is we piloted last year a driver's education program, as we discovered that a lot of our students have come in, gotten driver's permits, and driving with the permits and not quite have the assistance of one who is licensed by them, by their side as they drive around the city. And we have had a few gotten into problems with law enforcement. So we realized, let's try and help them not get into problems, but really learn the rules of the road and learn some English in the process so that when they do go for classes, they can obtain, they can win, they pass their tests and get the proper driver's licenses. Thank you, Anna. Next one. So just as I mentioned earlier, the population we initially started working with were Southeast Asian, which is still the larger population that we have. About 75% of our students are Burmese, Karen, or Rohingya. And then we now have more Arabic students, Somali, and really the Congolese community that we support. We also have Ukraine and Afghan. This is actually a little bit of older data, the top part, but we do have Ukraine and Afghan students as well. Our 2024 class registered students were 164 for ESL and citizenship 87. So that's basically just a little bit of the population that we serve. Now, we go to the next page. We will be talking about our computer literacy class. Now, we don't at this time have as many, I would say, waiting lists. We're always taking in new students every day. So we don't quite have a waiting list, but we do have computer courses that we offer within our classes. We have several levels, 0 through 3, that we offer. And thanks to our partnership with the Milwaukee Area Technical College, we have a lab in our space, and we have a large enough space that we were provided with about 20 computers that students have access to. And we also have been provided with a printer, black and white printer. And we have a computer tech specialist from MATC who comes in just to make sure that the systems run well, the computers are need to be upgraded, software upgraded, and things like that. That partnership with MATC has been great. We've had it for many years, and our teachers really appreciate it because it just makes it easy for them to bring their students in to the lab and teach them a few things on the computer. The literacy classes are, for the ESL classes, are teacher-led classes, and it's really up to each teacher how it is that they want to teach the students. They guide them through, what the computers are, language, the words for the peripherals that are used. The classes are 30 minutes to 1 hour long, depending on when the teacher and what the teacher wants to work with the students on. We have volunteers that assist the teachers as they go through the classes, because a lot of times many of the students need some assistance, just, working the computer, getting onto websites, and getting onto applications. Next page, Anna. So, as I mentioned, we have several levels in the ESL courses that we offer. For students that are at level 0 through 1, we have a less structured teaching. Now, this is just because the teachers want to introduce the computers, introduce applications and software to students as they're learning English. They introduce to the computers, the names of the peripherals and how to use them, guided on how to move the mouse and how to click on things. They're guided on as to where things are found on the page and on the screen. They're introduced to Microsoft products like Excel and Word, because a few are likely to end up having to use such apps in their work or work with their own children with their homework. We offer them access to sites like Learning Chocolate, ESL, games that are online, Starfall, and typing.com. Typing.com to encourage them to learn the keyboard and improve on their typing as well. For students at levels 2 and up, we have a basic literacy class there where there is a little bit of a curriculum that is provided by the teacher, because those students are more educated that we've discovered, and therefore can go through a program. So there's a lesson plan that is created by the teacher and handed out to the students, and they go through the lesson plan while going through, for example, programs like iExcel, where they have specific math activities that they need to do or English programming that they need to do. MATC also provides us with some learning platforms that are used by the teacher. Last year, as the voting, we were voting, it was a great opportunity for civics learning as well. So they were introduced to sites like myvote.wisconsin.gov and just provided with information that would help them. They're not all going to vote because they're all new to the country, but they get to understand our civic process. Next page, Anna. So as mentioned, the class activities are really based on what the teachers have planned in their 30 to 1 hour period. By the way, our ESL and citizenship classes are typically 2-hour long classes. And so during those 30 to 1 hour sessions, the teachers take advantage of the volunteers. We have volunteers that come in, and mostly each class has at least 2 to 3 volunteers that assist the teachers. And with it, they demonstrate the use of all the computer programs as well as the hardware. Students are encouraged to work together and also independently in the hopes that independently, if they have computers at home, they're able to use them freely, carry on the work that they've learned in school, go and work at home with. We encourage exploration of websites and applications as we do, as most people are usually on the net via the phone. Also on the computer, we encourage them to get around and discover new applications. And also one important thing, communication using email to send messages. So teachers try to have the higher level 2 and up, create email accounts for the students through sites like gmail.com, and then occasionally encourage them to write messages. So they practice their English as well as, standards for writing messages, greetings and things like that. So they are encouraged to use email to send messages. And we have applications that we subscribe to, like iExcel, which we're constantly, we've been at a steady 30 subscriptions, and it rotated between the classes, and it's been used really well by the students. I wanted to mention that we have about 20 computers that are provided to us by MATC, and we have an additional 20 laptops that MATC has also provided to us that the teachers can use outside of the lab that we have, so they can use them in class and we can demonstrate the work that they're trying to do. Next one, Anna, please. And so with regards to drop-in students, most students come in and specifically for a class in the morning or in the afternoon. Our classes are at 8:30 and 11 o'clock for 2 hours long, and the afternoon class at 5:30 to 8 p.m. So we don't have too many folks that come in unless they're specifically coming in for a specific class. But because the lab is available to them throughout the day, there are folks who've come in, maybe waiting to speak to one of us about some casework or information that they need. If they're waiting, they have an opportunity to sit at a computer and use it. The computers have some specific username and passwords that is plastered on the wall, so everybody has access to the computer. Administrative staff like myself can provide and respond to questions that they have. We have signage for all our websites and all the things that they want to use on the computer, and also encourage them not to, for example, bring food and drinks to the computer just to prevent there being any accidents. The high level students have some passwords and usernames that are assigned to them, but otherwise the computers have general login names and passwords. And next page. So one of the concerns that we have about our literacy classes is that though we want our students to have more experience on computers and get more comfortable with using them, we struggle every day with attendance. You never know what student is coming today, when and at what time, because they might come in half an hour late into class. And so teachers are always disrupted in their course on how to continue teaching what it is that they have planned. with the fact that we have students at different levels of literacy, we also have the issue of students with different technological experience, those who have used computers and have seen computers, and those who have not at all. So volunteers are really very helpful here in being able to give one-on-one experiences, work with those who are not familiar with, while others who are very familiar pass through and go through whatever plan is for the class. Students not having computers at home, as we have the Chromebooks, we now can offer students the opportunity to borrow a Chromebook and use it at home. A few of them have children who need to work on their computer with computers at home, and we have loaned them out for a night. But typically, we have them all work on the computers in the building. And then one of the big things the teachers are commenting about is the technical terms that one has to teach for one who's just beginning to learn English, trying to use terms that are simple. And also in some languages, when you have to interpret a thing or two, they may not necessarily be the word in their language for whatever it is that is being taught about a computer. Success-wise, our level 2 and up students use their emails a lot and are using them a lot more and feeling more confident about practicing their English and sending messages to the teachers about what it is that they have learned for the day in class. So it's really been a good opportunity, I think, for them to have the computer and to communicate back and forth with their teachers. Those with computers at home get onto sites that they've learned from in the classroom and continue to do their own, teaching, continue to learn and use the programs that they have when they get home. Again, with the computers, today, many of our students have their own children who have to use computers and who have to do research online. So to have a adult student able to navigate the computer also helps them with working with their students and doing research. And the last one, some students use the lab outside of their regular class to practice. I think I saw a question there, Robin.
Yes. Alyssa is asking if you have used Northstar.
No, I have not used Northstar personally, and I'm not sure that none of the teachers actually mentioned that in their list of programs that they've used, but would love to learn and understand more about that. And then, of course, share it with the teachers. Thank you for that. Okay, next. So one of the things that we would say about having this wonderful lab that we have, though it is, as you saw the picture previously, it is a great space that students can sit and work with. Unfortunately, one thing that we're missing is the ability to demonstrate what a teacher is doing while teaching the students. So we would love one fine day to have a large screen projector, which I think would be a great recommendation for anybody who creates a lab. Have a large screen that projects what the teacher is doing as they're speaking, because it's, visually it helps folks to really understand or see what is being taught. Our classroom space, our lab is small, again, which is why it's great that we have the Chromebooks, because now our classrooms are larger and therefore the students can have their laptops or the Chromebooks in their rooms while they work, whereas the lab is a little bit more constricted. And one of the things that I'm hoping that we can have is a dedicated IT specialist who can really teach a course in literacy, digital literacy, as opposed to relying on the teachers to have to do that. And then again, just the consistency of the teaching, because teachers may plan to have a class teaching computers, at the end of the last hour of the class, but then if students aren't coming or they come late and all that, it really does not make for an easy thing to have that. They prefer to do the ESL classes than do the computer classes. Okay. And yeah, so those are my little pointers about the literacy class, the digital literacy class that we offer at the Neighborhood House International Learning Program. Any more questions? I'm open to lots of questions. I love this one-on-one, conversations, and also feel free to ask.
Thank you, Lillian. And yes, we'd like to open it up. You can type in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask a question or raise your hand. We want to encourage people to ask both Harleen and Lillian questions or even share your experiences using conversation circles or computer labs.
I have a question for Harleen. Early on, excuse me, she mentioned that there are some volunteers that maybe don't work as well as coaches in the conversation circles. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, and at the same time also maybe talk about what kind of volunteer does do well in that position?
Yeah. I'll give you an example of something that just happened a couple of days ago, not couple of weeks ago, where we encouraged this one particular volunteer to join the group, and they sort of took it upon themselves to evaluate contributions by the students in the context of this usually does not happen in quote unquote American society or culture or usage in terms of language. And this happens. I have a fundamental objection to that because, like we are fond of saying that cultures that are not based in the United States are not, like a monolith. There are so many aspects to every culture. Well, the same applies to the United States. So that was just an overzealous sort of attitude that I feel is misplaced in terms of they feel they are trying to instruct, but what they are doing is causing a difference to sort of come up. Others are examples, again, volunteers who typically have a savior complex. So that is something that is there in most volunteering, frankly. But I find it misplaced in a conversation group where we are really just, trying to create this atmosphere of equality. We are all in this community, in this society together, and we are simply here to share things. So that's another example of a volunteer who I don't think works well. The third kind that I have the most problem with are people who have serious program outcomes in their head. So, and that I see with both tutors and with, and I have to be very honest, I was one of them when I started out. I used to get really hassled, like, oh my God, I've been working on this for 3 months. They still don't get it. But I was lucky that I didn't express it out, sort of uh, outwards. So I think adult education is a different animal. And they're just specifically when we're talking about a trauma-informed approach, we have to use program outcomes with a very light hand. And that's another kind of volunteer that I feel is not suitable for this program.
That's helpful. Thank you.
We have a few comments in the chat or questions that are more for Lillian. So one is if you help students know how to use their smartphones.
So that is a very good question. We have had opportunities to help students learn how to use the smartphones. Lately, a lot of messages come through, whether it's, third parties, anybody trying to solicit and get information. We've had to show or demonstrate students, one, explain, interpret what the messages are. But with the new smartphones versus what was before, there's so much to it now that I've heard my teachers say they've had to show their students how to use the video cameras or how they can actually do their emails as well, get access to the emails, so especially when not being able to get access to a computer at home, how do you get to Gmail? How do you get to this and that? And it's been interesting because there are those individuals who use the phone and aren't literate in their own languages, let alone being literate in English. And so being able to show them the icons on the phone and what those mean and have them understand how to use it. Yes, we've had to do that. No structure in it, though, I would say, in terms of how to teach them.
Thank you. And another question is, Alyssa noticed that as she has incorporated more digital literacy, she has seen more gains with her students in their TABE Class E tests. And she's wondering if you have seen the same and if you'd like to share anything about growing confidence with online TABE testing because of your computer class.
So interestingly, we're probably one of the very old and archaic folks because we don't do our TABE tests on the computer. It's still on paper until now. Today, in fact, one of my teachers has gone in and is going through a TABE Class E, the new 13, 14, and being taught how we're going to use this new one. And I'm the one, as a new person in the organization, all about trying to get us to be more technologically efficient. I want us all to get onto the computer and have our students test through that. I think it will help with improving, maybe possibly gains for the higher literacy students. For the lower ones, I think it might be a struggle, but we're always thinking that as they use the computers more often, they're more able to be employable, right? Like as they use more computers, there's more chances of them being able to find jobs in which they might have to use a computer. So I think I obviously believe that it would probably help with gains, but it will be a growing curve for us coming from paper to using the computer for the test.
Thank you. The next question I think is more directed toward Harleen, and this is asking if you have any virtual conversation circles.
Yeah, we actually tried them and we've not had a lot of success with the virtual conversation groups. We've tried a book reading group. I personally did not lead either of those. They were led by a colleague. And yeah, they just somehow didn't work. I think one of the biggest problems was that people would just drop out. They would attend for like 10 minutes and then they would disappear. So it just did not lead to the kind of cohesion that we see in our in-person circles.
So I do have one question that popped up directly to me with regards to how do we start our students? And I just wanted to ask more specifically what that question meant. Mary, if you don't mind, you sent it. How do you decide where to start with your students? Could you elaborate on that question, please? Mary Hempel.
Hi, Lillian.
Hi, Mary.
I'm just wondering how you determine a starting place for your students when they first come in. Do you just sit down and do a kind of interview, or do you do some informal assessments? Or how do you know what's going to be the way to teach them?
Specifically teaching them on digital literacy?
Yes, it seems like you do a lot of that.
Yes. So the teachers, as they have the students come in, and then they put them on the computer, do basic questioning as to their familiarity of the computer. So there's not really a test, but it's as they get there, because every student is going to go through whatever the plan is. But just going to the new one and asking them if they're familiar with, the computer, have they ever used it? Did they use it in their languages in the past or not? And then if we see that there is some struggle, is when we definitely try to assign a volunteer if possible to work with them close, so that they can get some, more experience on the computer and help that they need.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
So I have a question that could be for either of you. You both seem to use volunteers quite a bit. And I think a lot of agencies have the traditional tutoring program that uses volunteers. And thank you, Harlan. You kind of talked about some of the things that maybe are not a great fit for volunteers who, to work with the conversation group. How might you determine if a volunteer doesn't really know what program they want to work in? How do you help them through deciding that?
So in my case, I work in a library, so we have multiple options for volunteering. I do, encourage a volunteer to attend as many of our sessions as possible before we actually sort of include them as a formal volunteer. And to me, really, it's about observing them in that environment and seeing what they would be a great fit for. So we do have, situations where I will ask questions within the group situation to understand that, just to see how they handle that particular question, how they would react in a particular situation. And I think that's a very vague way of putting it, but that's at least my approach. I don't know, Lillian, if you have a different one, I would love to hear.
Yeah, no, I don't think that we have that much of a different one. I mean, we do offer orientation sessions for the volunteers so that they can get a sense of what they're going to get into, giving them some background information about the population that they'll be working with, give them an idea of what the class will be like, and also what the teachers' expectations are. And so then from there, they sort of have a sense of, is this really the place I really want to be in? Is it the kind of work I want to do? We answer any questions that they have. And then as they go in and they start working with the students and with the teachers, I specifically always check in on them, checking up on to see how things are going, check in to see, what were their aha moments or what were their difficulties. And then always also checking with the teachers to make sure, are the volunteers okay? Have they been good with them in their classes? How do the students feel about the volunteers and what the experience has been? And so once we receive that kind of information, then we then see whether or not we should have a conversation to facilitate the experience and of the volunteer. So far, we've not had any problems. It almost seems like everybody knows why they're coming in and are excited to come in and keep that level of energy that they are able to assist the teachers and assist the students. Oh, and the other thing too, which we implemented last year, was just a survey to know what it is that people truly feel about their experiences.
Great,
Thank you. And I see we have a hand raised and we have like 20 seconds. So Rebecca, do you want to quickly ask your question?
Really quick, yeah. I understand about being able to teach computers and where you get your training for that, but I was wondering about the training for the conversation circles. Where would you do some training for that as a leader or even a volunteer?
Yeah, so we've developed a training. In fact, we are right now starting a cohort in April for Massachusetts libraries. But I actually do not know of any other training. That's a good question, Rebecca. I'm going to look this up and maybe pass on the information to Anna.
Thank you
Great.
so much for that, Harleen. So thank you to Harleen and Lillian for joining us and sharing all of this great information and your experiences. I think your experience can always be the best teacher for us. And thank you for attending Conversation Circles and Computer Labs. The next session is online resources for students, News for You and GED online programs, and it begins at 3 o'clock. Please complete this short survey to help us improve professional development opportunities. You can access it at this QR code or at the link in the chat or the follow-up email you will receive from me. And if you enjoyed this session, please join us for the Big Share on Tuesday, March 4th, a fun day of virtual events and online giving that allows Wisconsin Literacy to offer this type of programming.